Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. We are going to be looking at the most active stocks on Yahoo Finance today. We're going to be looking at, if you haven't seen my models before, I use a proprietary model that I built myself through Google Finance. The reason I want to show you how Google Finance works is because I think everybody needs to know that you have access to data and you do not need to pay for services. Now, when we are looking at Nvidia today, which was the most active stock in the market, because obviously yesterday they had earnings, but we did not get the pop, snap, crackle that we would have expected. We can see that Nvidia today was only up 53 basis points. I mean, to be fair, if you really looked at the options chain of what was going on in the most active options, like if we just take a real quick look around the most active options in terms of what exists, let's see here. It's options, high, low, most active. If we just do the symbols here, you're going to see Nvidia's at the top. Nvidia had the most active options at expiring calls today at 150, 155, 145, 140. I'm assuming that this was a put. Was that a put or was that a call? I'm not quite sure. Oh no, that was a call. So we had calls at 50, 150, 155, 145, 140, 160, 152. Now, if you know anything about market structure and you start to do the math of what the prices are and the open interest here, that is hundreds of millions of dollars, if not just tens of millions of dollars. Now, when we think about that, I want to say all that because I want you to understand that when you get all that option activity around specific prices, it really means that nothing's going to happen. That's why a lot of people today were like, "Ooh, we got a big break where they beat, they raised, they're above the guidance, all this stuff." It doesn't even matter. Do you know why it doesn't matter? Because the market is not based off of what is going to be the earnings, the EPS, all that stuff in a short term. You are thinking about fundamental long-term business impacts that are actually going to drive the growth of the equity, not what is going to drive it over the course of an 8-hour period during the market being open. I say all that to bring it back to the fact that NVIDIA did nothing. Now, does that mean that I think that NVIDIA is not bullish? No, that doesn't. Because when I look at what I've seen NVIDIA do here on the 15th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st, 4 out of those 5 days, you see green background with black lettering. What that means in my model, boys and girls, is that that is in the standard distribution range. Now, what does that mean? So if we go ahead and do a quick review here, obviously it's a very deep model. You probably have never seen anything to this unless you've watched my previous videos. Thank you for returning if you have. This is what I mean in terms of the range. This is in the middle of the range. The top of the range is at 153. The bottom of the range is at 131. I like where NVIDIA is long term, but if you were trying to buy options that were going to necessarily hit and you were going to make a bunch of money today, sorry to tell you, boys and girls, that was not going to happen. Do you know why? Because when you look at what NVIDIA does, generally the times when you get the biggest pops are when people are not paying attention. The days where people are not paying attention, you see is up 4% there. You see these gigantic volume spikes, and then it completely collapses where you get the blue background with the black lettering. That means it's two standard deviations below its mean. Now, if we look at where NVIDIA is today, I'm not saying I wouldn't want to buy it. I do like that the 5 days at 144. I like it the 23 days at 142. We are really right at the very beginning of what might be a great move in NVIDIA. But if I look at what I'm seeing, even in my signals, in my short term, I've got to go short. I don't have any go longs in the short term or intermediate term. If I look at where it is from a trend perspective, this thing has been bearish now. This thing has essentially been bearish since the 18th when it was at 140. Now, yes, it can move up, but it just shows that it's really not having these aggressive moves higher that people are expecting. Now, if we look at the rolling sentiment, we can see that we are on a rising bull. If you watch my videos before, I've talked about this indicator, which I love because this indicator is really a representation of bullishness and bearishness in the market. This indicator has problems going above 60%. It has problems going below 40%. The reason is because there's a yin and a yang that exists in the markets, okay? And you really can't have 100% bullishness or 100% bearishness. This thing is currently, it looks like on the short term, this is based off of the 2 day, it's at 54% bullishness. Now, if we look at it on the 10-day rolling, we're at 49% bullishness, and we're actually going to be going negative as of tomorrow. We've got a trend flipping. Now, if we look at what we're seeing in terms of the signals, we've really removed all of the bullish signals. We've got an equal amount of bearish signals here. We've got a falling peak. If I was going to say that there's one thing that would be considered to be really, really advantageous for the long term, it's going to be this 1 month bull trigger. The reason why is because what we're going to be seeing is we're going to be getting a flip, most likely either on the 1 day, somewhere in here, I don't know, 15-day or 1 month from negative to positive, while it's also positive. It's also positive on the weekly. Let's go ahead and look at the weekly data here for NVIDIA. I may have to change this. I'm not quite sure exactly how this is going to look. No, it looks like it's coming through perfect. The thing I like is that you can see here, what is this for the past, I don't even know how many weeks that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for the past 7 weeks, you can see that right now NVIDIA is essentially redlining. It is 2 to 3 standard deviations above its weekly average. We are up just on the 5 week, we're up 6.5%. On 15 week, we're up 40%. We're barely up We're not even up 20% on the 5 months. That's what's crazy about where Nvidia is. Everyone is expecting this thing to be an absolute rocket, like it's somehow Bitcoin. When in actuality, if you look at the reality of what's going on in Nvidia, it's really showing you that it's actually not only consolidated a lot of the gains, it's had most of its gains behind it. That's why on the 5 month, it's up 16.5%, but on the 1 year, it's up 200 plus percent. You want to see something that's really crushing it? Let's go ahead and look. And the reason I want to bring up EAT is because that this is Chili's. People are paying attention to a semiconductor company because they're thinking that that's the only place that you can get this kind of move because everybody's so overwhelmed with the idea that AI is going to eat the world. When in actuality, you could just be eating at actual restaurants that are having even better returns. Look at over 1 year, this is up 247%. 247%. Please remember that number. Okay, 247% is what this is up, is what EAT is up. That's Chili's versus Nvidia. What is Nvidia up? 206%. So you're telling me that people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to guess the direction of how many semiconductor chips are going to be sold when they could just order and they could just go to Chili's, buy the stock here, okay, which is significantly better in terms of the return that you're going to be getting. I mean, this thing over 5 months is up 75%. Over 15 weeks, this thing is up 85%. If you remember, Nvidia was only up 16% over 5 weeks or over 15 weeks. Over 5 weeks, this thing is up 33%. You're telling me when we look at the daily chart here of EAT that you would rather be in Nvidia than in this stock? You've got to be kidding me. And this is the thing. This is why I make these videos because I need to be able to express how ridiculous the market is when people are looking at like, oh, well, why isn't Nvidia moving? Because we're getting a fundamental move. It's because you're not making fundamental decisions. You're not actually looking at how a business is operating and how it's actually going to generate equity value. I'm sorry. These videos are intended to show you the perspective that you should have if you're using math to pay attention to how actual stocks would move. But let me just do this. What I'm going to do real quick is we're going to look real quick here. So we have this. We're going to look at NVIDIA. I'm going to bring this up. We're going to sit this here. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it to EAT. And do you know why I'm going to do that? Because I want us to be able to see how easily and how differently how easily it is to find something that's actually going to be a fundamental grower. Look at this. On the 6 month, Nvidia is up 27%. Chili's is up 72%. On the 3 month, Nvidia is up 16.5%. Chili's is up 77%. On the 1 month, Nvidia is up 4.4%. Chili's is up 31%. On the 15-day, Nvidia is up 10.5%. Chili's is up 20%. Are you getting the drift? The reason why I continue to bring this up, and especially because I know that this is going to get a lot of views, well, relative to my channel, it's probably like 30, but that doesn't mean anything, is because I want people to pay attention to the fact that if you're going to be a serious trader, you're going to be somebody who pays attention to the actual market, the things that you're paying attention to are not the things that actually matter. If we're actually going to go ahead and look at what is a quick review here in terms of what we see in NVIDIA, yes, this is the phenomenal chart. But is yesterday the day to be buying? No, the day to be buying was here. Do you know why? Because if we look at the trade range, the days to be buying are going to be when it gets either below the trade level, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here because I've got my own other thing here because I had to make something because I had to make up for the fact that Google Finance, their data sometimes does suck. The days you should have been buying were when you were below the trade level. So when you're at that 140 to 141 on the 18th here, that's the day to be buying. The people piling into the 1 day call options that are going to expire the next day, thinking that, ooh, I got the edge on how many fucking Blackwater chips or whatever the chips are called are going to be sold. It's not that Nvidia is a bad company. It's not. It's a great company. It's got a great growth story. But if you really want to look at exactly the kind of stuff that you should be looking at, let's just look at stockanalysis.com because now that I've gone so deep on Nvidia to this point, I want to really show something that I think matters even more. And this is the type of stuff that people should be paying attention to, is that if we look at the income, okay? So look at the income, look at it on a quarterly basis. Yesterday, Nvidia reported a quarter where they made $35 billion in revenue. Their cost of revenue was 8.9 billion. They made a gross profit of $26 billion. That's fantastic until you realize that the previous quarter, their revenue growth was even higher, right? The previous quarter, they made 30 billion. They had 30 billion in terms of the revenue. It cost them this much to make. They ended up making that much gross profit. It was up 122% quarter over quarter. Now, if we look at it back in Q1, I don't even understand why these Qs are coming this way, but regardless, they made 26 billion in revenue. It was 5.6 billion to generate, and they made $20 billion. It was up 266%. This is actually a reduction. This is a slowing in your revenue growth. This is a slowing in your gross profit. People are trying to figure out what's going on with NVIDIA. NVIDIA's revenues are slowing. You may not want to accept it because the overall top line number is getting larger. Yes, great. At this time last year, they made $18 billion. Now they made 35 billion. They're up 93%. But where are they relative to where they were? Their revenue growth is slowing. And that's what everybody's trying to figure out. Ooh, why is NVIDIA going up? Nvidia's not going up because the market structure's fucked, because everybody's buying these zero DTE options, and their revenue growth is slowing. And if you add on top of it, when you're actually looking at the overall numbers, NVIDIA, the time to buy it was when it was below its actual trade level. Instead, what people are doing is they're buying at the highs, expecting it to go higher, like it's a rocket ship, like you're going to be the person who buys Bitcoin. It's not the way that markets work. But I wish you nothing but the best. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I want to see what you think because I went on kind of a rant here that I did not expect. But tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you want to get something even better, subscribe to the New High newsletter. I send it out every single Sunday. Sends you 25 stocks breaking out to all-time highs, stocks between $5 and $20, stocks breaking out to one-year highs, stocks breaking out to all-time highs. It is a great list to get your trading week started. I will talk to you soon.